I'm Adriana Brassard. I'm the head of public diplomacy and press at the European Union delegation in Washington, which is, in simple words, the embassy of the European Union. And I'm sure you know this, but I'll still say the European Union is a group of 27 European countries, used to be 28 after Brexit, we are only 27. And we are truly delighted to be here today. Thank you for the warm welcome, and also thank you to the Bertelsmann Foundation and the Letters Council of Charlotte for organizing this. We are a group of public diplomacy and press counselors from the different embassies of European countries that are visiting North Carolina today and yesterday, these 2 days. So just to give you an idea of who do we have here, and maybe if colleagues want to just raise a hand, we have the Embassy of Austria, Embassy of Belgium, Embassy of Cyprus, Embassy of Czech Republic. We have colleagues from Denmark, from the Embassy of Denmark, and the Embassy of Estonia, Embassy of France, Embassy of Italy, Embassy of Latvia, Embassy of Lithuania, Embassy of Poland, Embassy of Portugal, Embassy of Slovakia, and the Embassy of Sweden. And we also have with us a colleague that is representing the European Parliament in Washington. So it's not. I will ask my colleagues maybe to introduce themselves when they speak or when they take questions. Sorry for not mentioning their names, just for the sake of time. And just before getting to questions that many of you may have, let me just say a little bit about ourselves. So the European Union in the United States, and many of us, especially in this group, our main job is making sure that the message of European Union and the different countries gets across and reaches audiences on this side of the Atlantic. There are many priorities that we are working on. So the most important message for all of us is getting across the message of the importance of the transatlantic partnership. Something that may seem obvious, it's like a question in some context. It is a very unique alliance or partnership that we have on both sides of the Atlantic. But in economic terms, and I was told, I learned from Alex, that it's always good to put the economic perspective to geopolitical perspective, and I fully agree with that. 42% of GDP is created between Europe and the United States. And 10 million of people are employed on both sides of the Atlantic by foreign affiliates of the US and EU companies. And just zooming to North Carolina, there are 16 billion, the value of exports and services and goods from North Carolina to the EU. And 160,000 jobs were created from investment and trade between the EU and the United States. This is massive. It's an important trade and economic alliance, but it's also an important political alliance in a world where standing up for values that we have, common values in terms of democracy, rule of law, multilateral world order, is important. So underlining this is among our priorities, and just even zooming it in a little bit to something that is crucial for Europe, but also for our partner on this side, is the security and defending values, especially in the context of what is happening in Ukraine after the unprovoked and full-scale invasion of Russia to Ukraine, supporting people that are fighting this war in Ukraine, and supporting standing up for the values and for the importance of democracy and the importance of choosing how people will live in their country, considered crucial. Not only in that part of the world, but across the world, to remain truly committed to the values that we share on both sides. So this will be part of what's keeping us busy in this country, but I would be happy to bring in some of my colleagues to share their perspective. Also, just maybe one little other thing I wanted to point out, that I think we are in a very interesting period right now, we are in a time of transition in leadership on both sides of the Atlantic. You may not be fully aware that the European Union, that is as a leadership, is being decided in these days internally. There were European elections in June. The leadership of the European Commission was elected. President von der Leyen was confirmed for another term, but we are still waiting for the confirmation of the commissioners. That will happen in the European Parliament in November. So the European Union as such will have a new leadership sometimes at the end of the year, and we'll have new leadership on the side of the Atlantic also at the end of the year. So we are all expecting the new political priorities that will keep us busy. We have some of the general lines for the European Union that were already shared. It will be very much about competitiveness on the European side, about stimulating innovation and growth, but also in line with green growth, green policies, and certainly prosperity, but also security and democracy will be very high on the agenda of future European leadership. If you have more questions about digging into the depth of the composition and creation of the European institution now, Carolina from the European Parliament, she'll be happy to answer questions because a lot of that is happening now in European Parliament. But with that, let me maybe switch to some of the questions that many of you may have for my colleagues. We prepared a few questions that we can ask from our side, and then we'll open to questions from the audience, if that works. So one of the questions that we think could be interesting for you is to learn what are the key messages that not only the European Union but the different embassies are trying to get across in their work on this side of the Atlantic. So maybe I would ask some of my colleagues that would like come in on this question, and maybe you can have 2-3 people answering this question. David, please present yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Vanderquist, Head of Communication, Culture and Public Diplomacy at the Swedish Embassy. Been in DC for 2 years now. Briefly, so what are the key messages from the Swedish Embassy in the United States? Well, they very much align, I would say, with the European Union's messages and key priorities. First of all, we want the US to see us as a security provider. As a partner in NATO, you know, Sweden joined NATO only this year. So we are the newest member. We also have big partner before we became an ally, a partner to NATO in I think most of the operations around the world. We have large defense industries, so we want to encourage even deeper security cooperation between Sweden and the US, also when it comes to defending or helping Ukraine defend itself from the Russian aggression. So that's one of the first messages, an ally in security. Another one is partnering the green transition to a sustainable and green society. We have a lot of expertise. We have many companies who are far ahead in that transition, and providing solutions, providing innovation that spurs and helps and speeds up the green transition. We want to partner, we already do in many areas, with the US and US companies and US researchers in that endeavor. Thirdly, new technology and innovation, which is, you know, sort of touches on the green transition as well. Partners in research, partners in AI and quantum research. There's a lot of transatlantic research collaboration going on, and also on the corporate side there are many joint ventures trying to find solutions to new challenges. So maybe those would be the main 3 from our side.
Thank you, and Mari, from the perspective of Poland.
Hello everybody, my name is Maria Łęczyńska. I am with the Polish Embassy. I can maybe stand up so you can see your curriculum. Thank you. So I've been here in Washington DC just for 5 weeks. So I'm pretty fresh. But from the Polish perspective, our three priorities and our key messages to the American public. First of all, Poland is the backbone of NATO's eastern flank. We are the most populous country and the strongest in terms of economy there. So this is the first message. The second message is that we are an indispensable member of the transatlantic community. In terms of defense and security, we give 4% of our GDP to defense, because we do understand that Russia is an immediate threat to Poland as well. So we are just trying to do what we can just to make sure that we are secure in terms of weapons and army and so on. And the third key message would be probably that we are a very staunch supporter of Ukraine's freedom and independence, and probably because from the Western European countries' perspective, when Russia invaded Ukraine, it's only the change in the security situation. And for Poland and for the Baltic states, it's like an immediate threat. So we know that we might be next. So we will never start, cooperating with Ukraine and, rooting for its freedom and independence. Thank you so much.
We have one more from the perspective of Belgium.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for hosting us here today. I'll be very quick. From the Embassy of Belgium, obviously I would reiterate everything that my colleague Maria said. We're definitely also on those same lines, as well as the same lines set out on the European Union. For our public diplomacy messaging in the US, we have a branding called Be Open, BE, as in the initials of Belgium. Open, very clever, I know. Be open to innovation. So we're looking to work together with partners through the Transatlantic Relationship on innovation research, with our universities, with student exchanges, with our companies who are present here, and with US companies who invest in research and development in Belgium. And the second one is Be Open for Cooperation. We already cooperate through the things that were mentioned through the Transatlantic Relationship, but also be open to cooperation in other fields, development, for example, for achieving the SDGs. We work closely, my last posting was in Africa, we work very closely with the US colleagues in Central Africa on anti-corruption, on critical minerals, on a whole series of policies where we have aligned values. And the last one is be open to others. This is part of our public diplomacy everywhere in the world. Be open to others, meaning respect for human rights, respect for women's rights, children's rights, LGBTQI community, and it just in that line of our human rights outward messaging, we try to cooperate also with the US. Thank you very much.
So maybe switching to another question, since we are trying to get our messages across in the United States, what are the challenges that we face in some of the communication? We have something in the back from the Embassy of Slovakia.
Hello, my name is Stanislava. I'm from the Embassy of Slovakia. I'm very pleased to be here. And so maybe from our perspective, our embassy's perspective, the main communication challenges is the maybe lack of awareness. Sometimes I feel many Americans have limited knowledge about our country. We are a small country in Central Europe. Sometimes they mix it up with Slovenia or with Czechoslovakia. So we would definitely have to work on these things. And then maybe geopolitical perceptions to get across our narratives, because it's definitely challenging also in that way that we're a small country in the region and we need to leverage our influence within the EU with much stronger states. And definitely our representatives, like our students and diaspora, should make more awareness about the traditions and people towards people to be nice.
another 2 answers from Italy and then Austria. Ladies first, Austria.
Yeah, hello, I'm Finian, the president of the Diplomats Council from Austria. Thank you so much for having us here, because I think one of the challenges is we all sit at the embassies in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., as we know, is a bubble, and there people are very aware of politics, international relations, but we don't get out of DC often enough, so this is a great opportunity for us, to talk to different communities, to talk to students, and to me it's always the personal conversations and the people-to-people contacts in the end that we've heard colleagues talk about before. So the US is so diverse, the European Union is diverse, so it's a great opportunity to be here right now in North Carolina. And for Austria, we have this image of the sound of music, so I always say my biggest challenge right now is exactly, I'm not going to sing right now. But I always joke that that's my biggest challenge to, show Austria also as a country of innovation, this more modern image, and that we're not just, living in the historic past. But yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gianluca Battaglia. I'm the head of the press office at the Italian embassy. A lot of has been said already. I just arrived at the end of August, like my friend Maria in the back. So I do not have an answer to that question. Maybe I rather have an answer for you, and that is something that you could help me understand. So because probably for most of us, the challenge is to find a way to convey new messages, a new image. Maybe you already know all the cliche about Italy, about food, about our UNESCO list that is very long, but we have also other messages that we would like to get to: innovation, research, and actually we were doing a lot with US on these. But what I would like to hear from you today is what is relevant from a country like Italy or other countries from the European Union that could help us in what we are doing. So to tell the story of our countries. Thank you.
I would just add to that answer one experience from our trip. Yesterday we had a meeting with North Carolina State University and had a bit of change on the situation, what people care about in North Carolina, etc. And one of us asked the question, so do people care about foreign policy? And we could very quick answer, a very short one, no. So this is part of our challenge, because we do think that it's hugely important and people don't really realize how important it is, including for regular citizens in the middle of North Carolina. And maybe I would just ask if some of my colleagues want to speak to back to the question about the war that Russia is waging against Ukraine, and why is it important to the United States, and what are we doing to make people realize, and how to work with this administration on this issue? Would somebody like to take this question?
It's the turn for the Baltic states to speak on this question. Hello everyone, my name is Ruta. I come from Lithuania, and I can echo what my colleagues told today about the importance of transatlantic unity and ensuring our security. And when it comes to Ukraine, I feel like it also is the second question, one of the challenges when we communicate is how to make this issue not just about some foreign policy issue, but why it has to matter to the people of America. And it's a hard one. But we very often also talk about our history as Baltic states that were occupied by the Soviet Union, and we saw the terror, and we saw the will to erase our culture, erase our identity as independent states. And I feel like we were always talking about Russia's aggression and imperial ambitions that are not going to go away just like that. Even if we say, oh, let's give some of the land of Ukraine to Russia, maybe they're going to be happy about that. Our message is, the history has shown that doesn't work, and it will not work. And something that we communicate in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere in America is actually this inspiring story of our own building, of our own embassy in Washington, D.C. that I was telling the group. We have an embassy building on the 16th Street that's a little up north from White House, and we've been in this building for 100 years. This year we celebrate 100 years anniversary. So it's a big celebration for us because we were occupied by the Soviet Union for 50 years, but somehow that was the only building we could keep as our independent Lithuanian building, and this was the reason because US took a bold decision not to recognize it. Occupation of the Baltic states, meaning they let us keep the building, and also our diplomats work in the building to advocate for our freedom and our fight for independence. So we very often talk about the importance of US standing up for values, democracy, and freedom. It has done in the history, it has helped countries like the Baltic states, and we think it's really important that we keep this fight for now and in the future as well. Thank you.
I'm Sabina, I'm from Latvia, so we're in a really Baltic country to answer this question. And while I'll build on what Ruta said about freedom and democracy and values, but I also want to point out something that I think a lot of people forget because it's easy to forget. The modern world is so interlinked. We're all living in the same world. And if you want to know how close the United States and your internal issues are to Ukraine, I would like to remind you that the Ukraine is known as the breadbasket of the world. Ukraine is the largest grain provider to Africa, or sometimes called the Global South, and Latin America. Now, food poverty is one of the main driving factors of migration of people. Where do people from Latin America go? Usually up north, where you all live. And that is usually an internal discussion that you have around this time when you're electing people in government and in your power positions. And the other issue is that Russia is the biggest bully in the world. However we want to call them, they're the biggest bully in the world. Unfortunately, bullies respond only to one thing, and that is power. So, if I'm calling out to students, as you all probably have the freshest memories of what it is when there's middle school bully, they respond to power above all else. And Russia historically has only changed when it has faced an extreme military destruction. And that will be the only time they will change, because you can stop Russia maybe now, but they'll recoup, and return to where they were. So it is in all of our power to stop them, to defend democracy, rule of law, and freedom of all peoples, and we should definitely do that.
So this is amazing, and we've learned so much in this short period of time. I hope you'll learn even more from each other at the table. I do want to kind of reflect on what the representative of the Austrian embassy here said. It is about education, and this is what the World Affairs Council of Charlotte does. We are your partner. We are trying to help you in getting your message out that is important, that we're all interconnected. So 2 years ago, we had the Ambassador of Austria here with the Ambassador of the EU. This year, we had the Ambassador of Estonia and the Ambassador of Germany and the Ambassador of Ukraine by Zoom. She couldn't come in person. We had the Ambassador of France. Every Ambassador of France until the last one came to Charlotte to talk to us, the Ambassador of Germany. We had the Ambassador of Sweden about 7 years ago. I know your current ambassador went to Miami, to the World Affairs Council in Miami. We want to talk to you about maybe coming to Charlotte. We had really every ambassador from every country here in Charlotte, and we continue to do so. Why? Exactly to amplify the message that you are bringing to us here today. We are interconnected. Foreign policy does matter. You're right, unfortunately, when they ask voters in the US, which is one of the least interesting topics to them, it is foreign policy. And that's why the World Affairs Council system, 90 councils around the country, which World Affairs Council Charlotte is one, is here to help you. So have that in mind. Bring that message back to your embassies. We would like to continue working with you to get your message out, not only of the European Union, but also of other countries around the world. Having said that, I would like to invite the public here, our friends. And by the way, the person just entering is a very important person for all of you to know. She is the Chief of Protocol of the City of Charlotte, Alexis Gordon. And if you need anything in the City of Charlotte that's international related, please do talk to Alexis. And thank you, Alexis, for being here representing the city. So, questions? I'll take the first question. Actually, I'm asking myself. The first one's going to go to Sweden, and then please put your hands up. A historically neutral country is not a member of NATO. That must have been a very hard decision. Can you quickly let us know how the decision came to be? Because that was a really important decision that came out of Sweden.
All right. Well, the answer is simple. The Russian
Stand up so we can hear you.
the Russian invasion of Ukraine, already in the invasion of Crimea in 2014, the discussion started. I mean, it's always been a discussion. It's never really been a potential of Sweden joining. There's been like 30-40% wanting to join, the rest of the society. Now let's stay neutral, which we have done for over 200 years. After the invasion of Crimea, the discussion was started in earnest, and of course after the invasion, the full-scale invasion, I think it took 3 or 4 months before there was a solid majority to join NATO. If Russia can do this to Ukraine, none of us are safe, basically. So that swapped and changed the public opinion in a few weeks.
So this is a historic change in Sweden's foreign policy, and I hope the young people here in the audience know about this. One more thing, we had the first woman ambassador of Italy here as our guest, and the new ambassador of the EU is also a woman. 3 years ago, we had all the ambassadors the World Affairs Council invited were women ambassadors. Apparently at that time, 11% only, 11% of all the foreign ambassadors to the US and Washington DC are women. I hope when we do our research this year that the percentage has gone up, and we will try to do that next spring and bring as many women who are ambassadors to the US. Questions? One in the back there? Paula.
You can count on me. Good afternoon, Paula Grant, former Hello. Okay. I come at this a little bit from my experience serving the intelligence community in NATO operations around the world. You mentioned earlier, ma'am, that youth today don't care about foreign policy or maybe are unaware. I'm not sure of the context of the question. And I think that's true. I may be guilty as a parent of not encouraging my children to follow the news enough. But it concerns me that the next generation cares, it feels more about social welfare, which is also important, than national security. So I'm wondering, maybe you could speak about your millennial generations, your younger generation, some of you may be in that generation, but how do we continue to balance social welfare needs with this kind of crisis of global international security? Thank you.
Does someone from the EU want to respond to that, or are you asking the students to talk about it, Paula? EU.
That's a tricky one. It's a tricky one because I feel like it's a question more for the US to answer, so maybe more.
Yeah, but it's a very relevant question. As a mother of three, I see it very clearly that the news consumption these days for young people is different. And that's why I think the European Union has done a great job in different exchange programs. The only way to understand better each other is to go and learn to know the others. So Europe is not somewhere over there, not relevant. So I see it very useful that we can use and benefit from different exchange programs in the universities, in different communities, on state level, on federal level. Anything that makes you travel and learn more about the other, you will go and find it's not the other, it's us. So that's why I would encourage anyone to use all the opportunities. And European Union has many programs also with the US. So if you go to European Union website, so you will learn more. And Adriana maybe wants to add something.
She'd like your name and
Oh, sorry. I'm Ari Lembik and I'm from the Embassy of Estonia. And I'm very grateful for my friends in the table. We just realized there is a hand sign to show in different states where do you come from. From Michigan, it's this one. So if you are from Europe, you just show like that, and Estonians there, and France there. So this is something to take away from this meeting.
Thank you for coming to Charlotte. This is your second time this year. We want to see you again and again and again. So the World Affairs Council quickly does a program called the World Affairs Council program where we send teachers abroad. And we're interested in sending students abroad. So all of you from these embassies here, if you have programs like that, please reach out to Charlotte Faubert. She's our Direct Vice President of Education. This is important. Traveling and meeting, that is so important for national security and all other reasons, business as well. Who is the next question? Magdalena.
Thank you, Andrzej. Do I, or I can just speak really loudly. Do we want to do a few at a time? Yes.
We still have time. Well, one at a time. We'll do the three at a time in about 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi, Magdalena Krajewska. I'm a professor of political science at Wingate University, just outside of Charlotte. I'm Polish, so I'm really happy to see Polish representation here, but really, really happy to hear everything about the European Union. I teach about the European Union. In fact, my students will be taking a test on the European Union on Monday, so hopefully they will do well. But I really want to do the plug for the exchanges, the student exchanges that you've mentioned. So even though I work at a really small university, Wingate has a fantastic program of sending students all around the world, a program called International. And we took students to Poland, we took students to Estonia, to Sweden, to all the countries that you all represent. And even though we're a very small university, I'm from Poland. One of my colleagues, who's a political scientist, he's American, but he actually teaches about Estonia. And so we have an expert on Estonia at a small little college in rural North Carolina. And we have a Baltic Studies library in our library at Wingate. So even small universities and small colleges, are trying to make a difference, and we just know how incredibly important it is for American and international students to know about the world and about the European Union, given everything that's going on. So I just want to make a plug for this and thank all of you for doing all the
Thank you, Magdalena. I really appreciate it. Next question. Student, is that a student? Oh, go ahead, you're a journalist. Let's have a journalist. Mary Curtis.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary C. Curtis. I'm a journalist that covers the intersection of politics, culture, and race, primarily for Roll Call out of Washington, but for a variety of outlets. And I first of all want to say you're very brave for coming to a swing state during election season, because we've probably been inundated with some incredible amount of ads. You all are in Washington, D.C., speaking politics. And I want to ask, what kind of tightrope do your countries have to walk during election season in order to be open to all parties, because you don't know who will be in charge, particularly when the parties in the country and the city are so polarized, and particularly when the war in Ukraine, which is obvious that's been an issue in all of your countries, is one of the issues on which the parties are so polarized. You don't know who you're going to have to work with, so you're going to have to walk that tightrope. What is that like? What do they do? How do they operate?
Who wants to take that question? From the EU, someone.
Right here.
Here you go. Here we go.
I'll take it because I don't think it's as controversial as you think. No, as you would imagine. That's what I mean. So the way we work with both political parties is, as diplomats, we would go see someone in a think tank, someone in a political party, a staffer. We would talk about them, either about the Indo-Pacific or Ukraine, and we would listen to what they have to say, and we would pass the messages from our side, and the messages from our side don't change, whether we talk to a Republican or a Democrat. Our position on Ukraine does not change, and we try to make them understand what the US position would mean to us if they go one or another direction. After that, it's the US population, the voters' decision, who they choose, and we as diplomats will deal with whatever the result is. That's what we always do, not only in the US, anywhere in the world.
Thank you very much. We want the question from a student. Is there a student? Here is a student.
She's a student. She's a student.
Represent yourself. Tell us who you are. Stand up, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Joe. I'm a very recent graduate in cultural affairs. In areas around the world, we fall victim to stereotypes of our regions that we've touched on throughout the afternoon. How has this trip informed you about not just North Carolina, but the American South as a whole? And how does it inform you going forward recommending policy in Washington? Thank you.
Who wants to take this one? European Union? Anyone? Okay, let's take the second question and then we'll talk.
Right.
Here's a question. Here's an answer. There you go. Thank you. She's going to be next. The question. Let her answer and then we'll do the next question. Thank you.
My name is Irene Rama from the Bertelsmann Foundation. So we are a transatlantic think tank, and I've had the great opportunity to do with Sarah. Now this is our 18th state visit.
Oh, wow.
So what does it learn? It learned that Washington D.C. is not the United States of America. I think that's first. I think for me, secondly, it's you're an incredibly resilient country. So going back to what my neighbor at my table just said, whatever administration will come, I think you will overcome any trouble. I think it also takes away a lot of stereotypes we have from, if we look at the United States from the European lens. I think there is definitely something we need to work on in Europe, that we kind of get rid of the American stereotypes. I think that's not a good thing. It also learned me that we need to get our messaging in order. Is that sometimes we have the wrong messaging and we come often into a conversation, and I cannot talk about it, not talking about the diplomatic community, but kind of more the think tank expert community. We often take the moral high ground while we don't not really understand what is happening in the United States. So these state visits are incredibly helpful to see how you are changing politically and how you are changing socioeconomically, not now, but maybe on a time span from 5 to 10 years from now. So really always a fantastic opportunity.
Thank you so much. And now we're going to the last question. That was a great answer. Thank you. Last question of the day.
Hi, thank you. My name is Faris Hamza. I'm a political science major at Queen's University. I wanted to ask about one of the messages that a lot of the delegations here brought today, talking about the green transition and the EU's focus on clean energy. One thing that is obviously related to that is electric vehicles, and one place you can get electric vehicles for pretty cheap is from China. And you've also brought a message here of national security. So I wanted to ask, how do you balance that idea of national security and potentially being worried about risks of certain key industries being influenced by other countries with the need to transition fast, and maybe somebody from Czechia or Slovakia wants to take it because they have the industry there with the car industry.
Check
Questions I can answer that in case of.
I can try.
Okay.
This is a tough one because hi, I'm Rodzy from the Czech Embassy in DC, but I'm actually head of political section, so I can speak to the political side of your question now. I'm not that knowledgeable about the economic or the green part you're asking about, and obviously it's the automotive sector is one of the crucial sectors for Czech Republic, but we are not that dependent on China or other third markets, rather as we are dependent on Germany, our big neighbor, who's also the owner of the major Czech producer or Czech origin producer, the Škoda cars. Yeah. So, and in this respect, I think that my government's position is that we should really try to de-risk the automotive industry from other crucial sectors, and that we should not be dependent on materials like being imported from China or from other countries, which from countries who are strategic rivals to the West. Yeah, so we should really mostly be aware of this risk and work on like thinking this over ahead of ourselves. And speaking about China, I also want to mention that this is one of our major messages in Washington, that we want you to see that we are under pressure from Russia, and that Russia has invaded Ukraine already in 2014. But we are also aware that there is another major player who's putting under pressure the United States, and you are not on your own when it comes to facing China, and we are actually your good ally. So all the risks are very much interconnected nowadays. So this is our major message when it comes to China.
Yes, please.
On that one, I have noticed that on, I think it was on Friday, the European Union voted on countervailing measures against Chinese subsidized electric vehicles. So just to say, economic security is very high on the agenda of the European Union, and it will be in the future with the new administration. We just have a different approach. At least until now, what we have done is first we see what damage it does on our market with the proper investigation into the issue of electric vehicles before deciding on the measures, just not to disturb the market more than it's necessary. And this is the approach we took until now. We want to de-risk rather than decouple from China. This is so far the way we are addressing the issue, but economic security will be very high on our agenda.
Thank you so very much. This was a very enlightening event today. Thank you for coming to Charlotte. We hope you'll come again. Thank you to the students. Thank you to our supporters. And now we will close the session with the board chair, Michael McNamara.
The good news is, by the time I get up here, it means you're getting ready to leave. So that's how we end these things. Really want to just say, what a great day. So great to see so many young people, so much enthusiasm. I really personally have to say, I'm going to take away this message of Ukraine that I think probably doesn't get as much play in the United States as it clearly does in every European Union country. With that, I want to also just say, kind of just reiterate what LJ said about our ambassadors. We've hosted 5 already this year, and we have another one from the country of Qatar coming next week. Would invite all of you to come back to that. These events are knowledge building for all of us, and it's part of our mission. So I just want to say thank you very much.
Well, I want to be very brief, but I want to say thank you to all of you for joining us today and having the opportunity to be here. We as a Bertelsmann Foundation, we really enjoy to have these kind of opportunities, to create those opportunities. And I would only say, let's keep up the dialogue, because the dialogue creates appreciation. And that's what we need in our societies, in the free world. And let's keep up doing this and reinforcing it every day. Thank you so much. And